back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. We gave our head coach, Brian Billick, a little respite last week on the back end of London and the time change and all the crazy body clock management that we had going on in this city last week as 20,000 people came back. And, Coach, I thought we'd give it a break for a week. We'd come back against the Steelers and we'd have some sort of a happy result. This thing is really sort of falling down the mountain kind of quickly on the Ravens right now, and it's very obvious they're missing a lot of personnel.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. I mean, when you have the interior of your defensive line wiped out the way it has with the injuries to Williams and Brent Urban, and the offensive line, my gosh, when I saw Stanley go down, I thought, oh, my God, this is going to be tough. It was great to see him come back in. But, yeah, I mean, when you're talking about up front like that, that coaches don't talk about that because it sounds like an excuse. I can. But when you have your frontline people go down that way, it's tough.
What's the difference with Marshall Yanda? I mean, it's just one-on-one and winning the battle that's in front of him or taking on two guys and just maybe even the confidence that you would have if you're Greg Roman or Marty Morningwig that the block's going to get made every single time, and when that's not done every single time, there's always a chance of a blow-up, and we've seen enough of that over 2 weeks, I think. Right?
Well, when you've had the revolving door that has been the offensive line for the Ravens, and with Hurst having to go at guard and Skura then having to come in at the right guard because of the other injuries, let alone the injury early in the year with Alex, but through it all, you have one anchor, and that's Marshall Yanda, and you kind of figure, okay, we have one guy that can kind of hold this thing together with the young center Jensen and having to bring in Austin Howard at the right tackle and people moving around. We can anchor it around Yanda. And when that anchor disappears, then all of a sudden the inequities or the difficulties that you're having with the offensive line just get compounded. So you look at that and say, okay, where is that anchor? Stanley, I guess, could be obviously to a degree, but I mean, he's just in his second year. So, this is a tough one with that offensive line, and you can tell that rightfully so. It appears to me Joe is I don't want to use the term skittish, but he's aware of what's going on in front of him, and that's difficult for a quarterback.
He is our head coach on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation, and this is a momentous week. It is an opportunity for you to come out and drink and eat under the stars this weekend at Maritime Magic. It is 30 years into this now. James Bond and the group have been doing that. You can go to livingclassrooms.org and learn more about Maritime Magic. We'll be dancing the night away this weekend. The Ravens, however, dancing off to Oakland, and maybe Joe Flacco is tippy-toeing at this point. Coach, some thoughts on Flacco. I mean, the one thing to my naked eye, other than the fact that they haven't gone down the field that much, he hasn't had that much time, the scramble ability, and as you've sort of pointed out, sort of the turtling up, that he looks like he has no ability at all to get his feet moving and move toward the sticks. And I don't mean beating a cornerback or a safety running, because he was never going to do that. But there were many, many times at the stadium here where we all rose to our feet as he scrambled out and bootlegged to a first down. That looks like that's not a part of the playbook anymore. And quite frankly, it looks like mobility's not a part of his arsenal right here, right now. And, boy, they like to tee off on that on third down, don't they?
Well, yeah, the combination of missing because of injury the entire preseason. We've already talked about the offensive line, the familiarity with the wide receivers. I know they're veterans and Joe's veteran, but I always, have jokingly always say, if we didn't need to practice, we wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because anytime you put a player on the field, you run the risk of getting injured. And so coaches don't just do that just to do it. I mean, it takes certain rhythm, it takes certain processes to get into that rhythm. And when you think that the Ravens, with all that's going on, and then the flow of the game, I mean, when the Steelers go 16 plays in 10 minutes in that first quarter, and then the Ravens go 3 and out, and then 3 and out, and it's hard to get continuity. It's hard to, people say, well, you should run more, you should pass less. You should do more of everything, but you're just not getting a chance with the 3 and outs that you have, and obviously to be able to try to make something happen that first half. And then the second half, they came out and Pittsburgh didn't look much better. And all you figured is just give us a play. Then they have an 11-play, 5-minute drive. And all of a sudden now that clock just kind of disappears on you. And so that, it all adds up. And is Joe not as fluid? Probably not 100% healthy at a tough time when an offensive line is a bit porous and doesn't have quite the relationship with the receivers, like the throw to Perriman in the corner that really could have made a big difference. A little bit high and outside. That has to do with Joe. That has to do with Perriman. A lot of things go on with that. And so, right now it's just hard to get that mesh.
Well, you talk about Perriman wearing the goat horns for, third year now, one catch. Ozzie will take the brunt of that criticism. Luke, you wrote a critical piece at WNST.net about the drafting of the Ravens in recent years, and that's well documented with the Matt Elams and the other Arthur Browns and anything else that's gone wrong. But part of this has been, much like in your era, Coach, where the defense has been stockpiled. 13 of the 17 first two-day draft picks have been on defense, not on offense. And much like maybe during your tenure where you're like, well, all of our money's on the defense, how good do you expect our offense to be? As a fan, I can sort of see that. But then you have to go out there and pragmatically work through these games, and you do look down and say, well, they really didn't draft all that much to make the offense all that better, right?
Yeah, and you could take a couple of different approaches with it. I mean, at the end of the day, you're always trying to get the best people that you can. But you can, when you have the defense the Ravens has for a year and you stockpile it, and you have the quarterback, which they believe they do in Joe Flacco, you're going, well, we'll it's like the Tom Brady syndrome or Aaron Rodgers. Well, he'll make us good enough that let's build up the defense. Or you say, okay, that's our bell cow. We're going to load up on the offensive side. We're going to surround them with all the talent that we possibly can. And of course, in Green Bay, that means they draft to it. Obviously, in New England with Tom Brady, it's kind of, okay, Tom will make good whatever we have. But you can see the difference, too, how good Tom Brady was in that 2008 season. When they dang near went undefeated and won the Super Bowl, when they loaded up with Randy Moss and the other players, just how good they were offensively. So you can take, in Atlanta with Matt Ryan, what do? It's all about supporting Matt Ryan and giving him the tools he needs. And we'll make do with the defense. They hired two defensive guys, Mike Smith and Dan Quinn, figuring, okay, we'll let the gurus on defense come up with the magic formulas. We're going to put all our players on offense. So, there's different ways to approach it. Right now, I mean, that's a fair criticism in terms of where they are in personnel and have they really supported Joe Flacco. And due to injuries, I mean, they obviously built the defense up, but then, like will happen, injuries all of a sudden, the best laid plans, you tear out the heart of that interior defense, and you've seen it the last 2 weeks when obviously Baltimore is we're not used to seeing that defense being gashed in the running game the way they have for, 144 yards total and then 144 yards by Bell and 166 yards by Jacksonville.
Coach Billick joining us here. You can follow him out on Twitter as well as on the network and doing the X's and O's and the breakdowns on Wednesday nights as well. Last thing on the Ravens side here, Coach. I'm trying to find any sort of silver lining in all of this and how bad the offense has been and the challenges they have from the injuries. Marlon Humphrey looked okay on Sunday. Looks like, as far as first-round draft picks and guys that are going to get on the field, it looks like he's going to be getting on the field more than less here, and there'll be some other maneuverings around on the backside of that, right?
Yeah, he got schooled a couple times by Antonio Brown and the sheer size and strength and speed or Martavius Bryant. Ben missed some things, but certainly, you spend that kind of money. We just talked about putting assets on the defense. That first round pick for you needs to be on the field, and he certainly showed that he was not out of his own element. If you want to look at things going forward, Oakland could be without Derek Carr. I know you're going on the road. Chicago is what they are. At some point, they're going to go with Trubisky. Minnesota, we've seen, again, until they get Bradford back, Case Keenum kind of came back to earth last week in losing to Detroit. Miami just seems like they can't get out of their own way. So the teams coming up for the Ravens give them some hope that they could maybe piece this thing together.
Coach, for the knee and the booing, I did not have you on last week to discuss all of this, which is probably good. A week later, let it marinate a little bit. Some thoughts for you and for all these coaches in the league trying to hold together left and right and black and white and east and west and rich and poor. We're all trying to do that in our society right now. And, we have this incredible sadness from this Las Vegas incident that happened earlier in the week, in the midnight after an NFL game day. We're in a crazy time in America. And when 30,000 people in purple jerseys are booing a prayer and a call for unity before a game, I could just throw my hands up. I don't even know what to say, Coach.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Recognizing that no matter what the organization does, you're going to make somebody mad. That there's no one right encompassing answer for that, and that's the difficulty. Because at the end of the day, notwithstanding the personal opinions that anybody in the organization may have, that you have to be respectful of it. At the end of the day, this is a business, and the organization, and in this instance led by John, they got to do something. And whatever you do, you're going to be criticized. But you got to put it at a point where you can hold it at arm's length now to go do your job. And that's the tough part, because that sounds terrible. It sounds mercenary. It sounds like you don't care. You're not, sports has an obligation. Because at the end of the day, and I think what we're saying, right or wrong, the fans are basically saying as a part of this, hey, I don't want this around my sports. Yeah, I live with it every day. And I have an opinion, and it's this or that, and we'll talk about it, and over the dinner table, and this, that, and the other. But when I go to sports and I go watch my Ravens play, I don't want to deal with this. And so that's a tough one. That's a tough one for the organization. It's a tough one for the fans. And then it gets compounded. It shouldn't have anything to do with it, but it gets compounded by the team not playing well now. I guarantee it's not as big an issue in Pittsburgh today as it would be if they had lost. And that's not right. It doesn't make sense. One has nothing to do with the other, but it does. And so that's just the environment we're in right now, and there's no easy answer.
Coach, let's talk about Pittsburgh, because they're going to be the team in the way here. Cleveland and Cincinnati are not going to represent the AFC North in January in the playoffs. That's pretty obvious. It's starting to look less like the Ravens are going to be that team. Where are you on the Steelers right now? I mean, I guess they did enough to win, impressive road victory, but you talk about loading up on offense and expecting things. Much more is expected of that offense, and certainly their pass defense has been far better so far than anything they've seen there in recent times. Kind of a weird version of the Steelers, and I don't know that they need to be really good. It feels to me like all they're going to need to do is have to count the 9 or 10, and they'll be the representative, because nobody else in this division is going to come and get them.
Well, we'll have to see. Yeah, we got a long way to go. They have their own issues. Their offense. Ben never plays well in Baltimore. He played better yesterday or on Sunday than he has of late. The challenge, for the Ravens or anybody else in the division now is, you need to hold serve at home. So now the Ravens have the tough challenge is they want to think of themselves as a playoff team, particularly in reference to Pittsburgh. Now you got to go beat them in Pittsburgh. And you have some other teams that in the AFC, obviously Denver looks pretty good. Oakland stumbled a little bit, but they're going to be a factor. Kansas City looks good. If we want to start competing in that wild card division, it gets tough. Pittsburgh ought to be good, but we also know they're a bit schizophrenic. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. Can't put your finger on it. It looks like Le'Veon Bell is getting back into rhythm. You talk about, the effect of not having a training camp, and as much as people can dismiss that, it was, evident for Le'Veon Bell. And Ben will be better than he has been or than he was. This Juju Smith-Schuster looks like he's going to be a nice addition. And they just seem to, when it comes to receivers, they just seem to figure it out. They just seem to have a formula to know who to get and be successful, because, he looks like he's a legitimate guy and they got him in the second round. So, defensively, they're going to continue to be good. They got healthier this last week than they were the week before. So, I think the Steelers are going to be around it and be pretty good, but they can be a little up and down sometimes.
Couple shocking 3-1 teams, right? I mean, look at the Buffalo Bills. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles right now. There are some teams out there playing better football than maybe we thought they could.
Yeah, the NFC, I think the Washington Redskins are a team that's going to become interesting. But everybody's got warts, so to speak. Detroit looks pretty good, but we know that some of their issues and the inability to run the ball and be balanced. Philadelphia does look like, they're playing pretty good defense. Carson Wentz continues to step up, and boy, did they pound the football the other day. So, Carolina is a team that I think, as Cam Newton gets used to having a Christian McCaffrey, they played off the fact that people were focused on them. They hit some big plays down the field. Tampa had a good, solid win, all but at home. The NFC is going to be very interesting, and the AFC is just wide open. Kansas City looks to be leading the pack, so to speak. Buffalo looks better. We just talked about Pittsburgh. Denver looks to be the real deal as long as they can run and not put Trevor Siemian in a situation where he has to throw the ball a whole lot. New England's going to still hang around it. And watch out for the Houston Texans. This Deshaun Watson looks like they may have just what they need, to now all of a sudden now maybe be a team that not only makes the playoffs but could go beyond. This kid seems pretty good, making plays with his legs on third down. So a lot of. It's a wide open field right now, and that's kind of fun.
Look, man, you do the draft every year. How do they miss on Deshaun Watson? I mean, the kid's sitting there under your nose, playing at Clemson, win a national championship. Hey, I don't know why we should be so shocked that he's okay. And certainly 4 games into this, but the kind of day he had on Sunday, we've all watched this on Saturdays for the last couple of years. It doesn't always translate. What was the knock on that kid, Coach?
Well, it wasn't so much knock. I mean, there was a question of could his game, and it's a legitimate question with so many people, looking at these types of quarterbacks, but would that kind of talent translate into the NFL? Plus, he was surrounded by an incredible team. So, it's kind of, is it just him? Is what's going on around him? Kind of a lean build. Is he going to grow into it? So there were some legitimate questions, but you're still talking about the 12th pick overall. It's not like, he fell like Deshaun Kaiser for legitimate reasons in the second round. And, 12th pick overall is pretty darn good. There were just enough questions compared to, say, a Mitch Trubisky that we could see earlier that, left you a little bit of pause. But being the 12th overall pick is pretty darn good.
Coach, appreciate you. Love you. We'll see you at Maritime Magic this week on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation. Tell everybody where to find you at NFL Network. I know you're doing you're breaking down plays every Wednesday night at 6, correct?
Yeah, it's fun. It's the only real football show on any network for that matter. It's Playbook every Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. on the NFL Network. Me and Sean O'Hara.
The Ravens haven't given you much to break down. We'll see you soon, man.
All right, man.
There he goes, Coach Billick out on Twitter and, of course, visiting us on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation and our friends at Maritime Magic. The event is this Friday, so it's once a year. It's the best party in Baltimore. If you have nothing on your calendar, want to go out, do something great for a great cause and our friends and support the Living Classrooms Foundation, this is the week to do that. Learn more at livingclassrooms.org. You can find me out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear on your mobile device from anywhere in the world. I was listening in London last week on the tube above ground. We are headed out for road trips galore here the next couple of weeks. Every other week, the Ravens on the road. This week, it's Oakland. Then, obviously, off to Minnesota, Nashville, and Green Bay next month. We got baseball playoffs happening this week. Luke will be on the backfields in Owings Mills for anything that is happening. And, of course, any breaking news will happen first on the WNST text service. That is all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Colossus will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home. It is the SSV on WNST. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.